Hello and welcome to JoeShine's Let's Play Kerbal Space Program Career Mode Episode 8. We ended quickly last time because I thought I was almost out of time, and I was. So first thing we're going to do is go right back into research and development and pick up our second of the two purchases we can do between each mission. You know, we're at the point in the tree where things are starting to branch out and get really interesting, and you know, I looked over here at the heavier rocketry, and here we see one of the first, I think this is the first piece we have access to for the new asteroid redirect mission parts, and that's very exciting, and I don't know exactly how much better it is than anything else. In general reference, if you want to get a really good education on how all this stuff works, go look at Scott Manley's videos. We're just here to have fun and goof off and watch me embarrass myself. Speaking of embarrassing myself, I was considering going towards the aerodynamics, but just because the flight part of this is something that I have much less experience with, so we're going to be learning together. But I think what I'm going to do instead, I did pick up the electrics tech because I like the better battery here, the single round battery, but specifically I did want some of those simple solar panels. I don't want to get too far ahead though, so I think what we're going to do is just advanced rocketry. This particular engine, the radial mounted engine, you know, for me, it doesn't come up that often, but maybe it will. We'll come up with a new idea, and we'll try and use this maybe as part of a landing or takeoff stage when we go to the moon, maybe. We'll see. This fuel tank, I had already said before, all it is double the size of the tank that we have still, that we already have. It's the largest of this diameter tank, so you know, it's not that big of a deal, but like I said, don't want to get too far ahead, so we will research that. Unlocking, yeah, see, man, this is going to be something that's big. I think I'm going to need these larger engines and the larger diameter tanks before we actually go land on the moon. It maybe not. We'll see. For now, let's go build a ship and figure out where we want to go next. Okay, what do we have here? A ship that looks surprisingly and suspiciously familiar. Yeah, we didn't unlock a ton of new parts, and so what I wanted to try and do is see if the previous ship, the Minmus hopper, with some slight modifications, namely a few of the small solid rocket boosters, could get us to the moon and back. I think we're actually going to be fine. I think it's going to be a little tight, but I think it's going to be okay. I added those extra little solid boosters because I want to save a little bit of the fuel for getting into and then out of the moon's gravity well. The only other changes that I made on this ship were, since the previous fuel tanks had been, you know, in even numbers, I went ahead and replaced them out with the larger ones, and I adjusted the transfer stage here to allow for, hopefully, a little extra fuel on the way. I also stuck a few solar panels up here. Not that we need them. It's really superfluous to our needs. We still have the batteries, and we didn't come close to needing them. So we are on our way, and since, you know, we've seen how to get into orbit and even how to get to the moon, I will jump ahead to a little bit later in the mission. And here we are, in space, on our way to finally land on the moon. Taking a quick look, we've got our maneuver set up. We have a very lovely close encounter, 22 kilometers above the surface of the moon. That'll be nice and hopefully nice and efficient, and everything will work out just fine. We are, I believe, doing just fine on fuel and monopropellant. Burrod, of course, has the utmost confidence in me. So, as we head on in, wanted to talk today about some apps, some additional tools. Like, we already know that I like the additional data, despite the fact that I changed my mind in the middle of a mission very easily. Like, deciding at the beginning of this video that I would need much fancier tools and equipment to actually do a landing on the moon, envisioning in my head something closer to like an Apollo landing. And then, of course, I went ahead and changed and tried to do something that recycle an idea that I already used on Minmus, hoping that it will work. So, yeah. Anyway, additional data. Let's see where we are. Alright, 5 hours. Let's put a null maneuver there, so I've got a little clock. I do not have an iPhone. I have one of the others. But there are a bunch of apps. I mean, there are tons of apps out there, but there are a bunch that I particularly like and that I hang on to for just sort of general use. Not, every mission, but it comes up. There's one called KSP Informer. It's basically an encyclopedia type interface, where you can pull up information on any of the planets or their moons. This is going to provide orbital, physical, and, where appropriate, atmospheric characteristics. So, first, does it have an atmosphere, and then what is the height of the atmosphere, what is the gravity of the planet, what are the dimensions of the planet, of the moon, whatever. These are nice for just general benchmarks. The next one, KSP Orbicalc, Orbicalc. You use this to define relative angles between planets in order to perform an interplanetary transfer maneuver. You put in your to, your from, and whatever the parking orbit is, and it gives you an angle that you should be shooting for. So everything is very lovely. And speaking of lovely, I love it. This might be our picture, so let's take a quick shot here. Nice. Alright, we'll screenshot. Another one that I don't use a lot, but I use sometimes, KSP Orbit. It gives you little calculations to get information on like various orbit characteristics. You put in your altitude, and it gives you the orbital velocity and orbital period of that altitude. You are X kilometers above the surface. If this is a stable orbit, you are going Y kilometers per second. Like this is just what you're doing. So it's nice to have. I don't think it's like a huge deal. So we're just gonna do a simple little capture burn here. We're basically pointing at our node anyway, so let's just zoom in while I continue jabbering. There are just tons and tons of applications out there, and that's the great part about a piece of software that has such an active community who is working on it, however unofficially. There are 2 websites that I think are especially pertinent to mention, and I'll put the URLs in the description of the video. But one of them that's been getting a lot of press recently, I feel like it's been coming up in other people's videos very, very often in the last few weeks, is the Aerobraking calculator. Exactly what it sounds like. Calculate an aerobraking maneuver. You enter in a ton of information, and it gives you down to the meter of what your periapsis should be. So that's pretty cool. The other one, of course, is the KSP Wiki. Just a wealth of information, especially for newer players. I cannot stress that enough. You know, doing walkthroughs, giving tips on the manufacture and flying of vehicles, doing walkthroughs of here's a step-by-step of what you should of what you should try and accomplish. You know, to learn the skills. We may actually be referring to that on some of the aeronautics, the actual planes, because I would love to get a better understanding of that. I feel like I think that's my big issue with the planes. It's just harder for me to wrap my head around. So where are we? Fairly circular, and I'm not overly concerned with that, because I feel like we're not even going to bother with a full rotation. Next time we're around on the light side of the moon, we'll come in for a landing and probably come in for this crater here, whatever this one happens to be called. I think we've gotten some of our science, but in orbit around the moon, but I don't think that I don't think we've done this yet. So we're gonna keep this again. I plan on taking it home. So let's come on in. I'm gonna skip ahead for a landing, and then we'll wrap up this episode and let Burrod jump around for a bit. So we have made our burn. We'll come back, look at the map, and yeah, we are coming down right in the middle of that big old crater. We're not actually going to end up there. Unless you're much better at this than I tend to be, or frankly most people that I watch tend to be. As you come in, you're going to still need to be killing off a lot more of your velocity, and as you're burning, unless you're really careful about sticking right on your prograde marker, you are going to be moving this back and forth. And you know, if you're trying to kill lateral velocity or vertical velocity, depending on your needs, unless you're doing it very balanced, as I said, right along your marker there, that's not where I'm going to end up, but it'll be close. So we're going to come on down, and you know, I did say we will come in for a landing, let him jump around and call the episode there, and I think we will come down, but we may stop it a little early, because I'd like to let Burrod run around and scamper a bit, and that may be the next episode in preparation for coming on home. But yeah, so I was mentioning that I would love to do an Apollo type mission. Just the multi-stage lunar lander, the whole deal, and I think that would just be so much fun to try, and you know, to design one as best I understand it. I don't think I would want to just copy an existing design. I mean, of course I am copying an existing design. I'm going to be trying to copy the Apollo. So, you know, we'll see if we can do our own version of a Saturn V, depending on how much oomph these new engines give us. Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. So that's something for a future episode, as in fact is the landing. So until next time, have fun, game on.